Hello, I'm Kristin Wange, and I'll be telling you about one of the most famous conductors on the Underground Railroad. It wasn't a railroad nor underground, but the point of it was to help slave escapes to the north. Conductors were people who took other slaves on it to freedom. And this is the story of Harriet Tubman, one of the most amazing conductors ever. Harriet Tubman was born into slavery on the eastern shore of Maryland in 1822. Edward Broadus would hire Tubman out at the age of 5 to temporary owners. When she was a young teen of 15, working as a field hand, Tubman was nearly killed by a blow to her head from this 2-pound iron weight. It was thrown by an angry overseer at another fleeing slave when she stood in the way to defend that runaway slave. Her mother nursed her the best she could, but Tubman was in a coma for weeks, and her forehead remained dented and scarred throughout the rest of her life. This brings us to the next artifact, her bandana. She wore this bandana everywhere she went after the head injury involving the iron weight from earlier. Though she survived the weight, her forehead remained dented and scarred through the rest of her life. A severe injury, and suffered from headaches, seizures, and sleeping spells known as malaise for the rest of her life. Sometimes she would randomly faint for no reason. She escaped slavery in the late fall of 1849 under the cover of darkness. Most of the reason being that her husband threatened to sell her down the river into deep south. One thing that helped her find her way was a North Star and also a lantern. Lanterns were also used in the Underground Railroad as a communication tool. Like if a house was friendly, they would leave a lantern outside. In short, it was like a code word. But without a word, it was an object. When she had escaped to Philadelphia, she decided to go back and help others escape. She used many tricks, but one was actually quite simple, and it used this object right here. While a slave, she learned how to sew, and she used this to her advantage. She would sew her own disguises and to throw people off. The common disguises were of an old woman or of a man. The next artifact also deals with her travels to the south. Tubman used many tactics to keep her group moving. One that is well known is when she used this revolver, threatening to kill any escapees who try to go back by shouting at them and pointing this at her head, saying, "Move or die!" No one ever headed back, and she never lost a passenger. Civil War, she had rescued 300 slaves. Of course, this would make the slave captors angry. This poster shows how much her captor was worth. As you can imagine, this amount of money made slave captors very greedy. Often, the posters like this one here would say she was illiterate. This was true, and to outsmart the slave catchers, she would sometimes have a book, often a Bible, being a deeply religious woman, like this one here, and pretend she was able to read. Now in 1857, she rescued her 80-year-old parents. This was very rare since older people normally didn't go on the railroad. She hired out a wagon from Maryland, took it to her parents, and they rode it the whole way back. Here is one of the wagon wheels from that wagon. Biographer Earl Conrad later described the event, Harriet's abduction Harriet's abduction of her parents was an event in underground annuals. It was significant because Harriet carried them in a wagon that represented complete mastery of the railroad and perfect scorn of the white patrol. Though not everyone felt this way. Later, one man, John Bell Robinson, a pro-slavery from Philadelphia, described the same event in his 1860 Pictures of Slavery and Freedom as a diabolical act of wickedness and cruelty, taking her elderly parents away from ease and comfortable homes. A cruel act as ever was performed by a child towards her parents. When the Civil War started, she continued doing what she did, rescuing slaves and taking them to freedom. In early 1812, she joined the war on, naturally, the Union side at Beaufort, South Carolina. This would have been the hat for the Union Army she wore. She was also a scout and a spy. In the spring of 1863, at the request of the Union, Tubman organized a scouting service of black men and began leading expeditions into enemy territory, seeking information they could relay back to the North. Described by historian Lyndon Bennett as the most remarkable of all Union spies, Tubman was also recognized as the first and possibly the last woman to lead U.S. Army troops in a battle. Sadly, though, one thing I do want to mention is that even though Harriet Tubman spent many things for the Union, like getting many slaves out of the South and into the North, and also leading groups and groups of black people down into the South to relay information back to the North, the Union did very little to commemorate her. She only got a small war pension and barely any credit or any thanks. In England, one of the rulers did come and congratulate her on what she had done. Her lifelong goal was to help elderly, orphaned, and disabled and ex-slaves. So, whenever she became older, she spent most of her money to buy 7 acres of land that became a retirement facility and also a recovery center for other ex-slaves. 2 years before her death, she became a resident in this retirement facility and also died there. Now that I've told you about her, does anyone have any questions?
You mentioned she helped her parents. Did she help any other family members too?
Yes. Her first trip was to rescue her nieces and their children when she heard they'd be sold soon. In 1851, she went and saved 2 of her brothers and 11 other people along with them. And by 1857, she saved all of her family.
After the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850, what happened to the slaves she saved since the North was dangerous?
Good question. When the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 was passed, she helped people get to Canada. Most of them were brought to St. Catharines, Ontario. And is there anything else, or anyone else wants to ask a question? All right, thank you, and come again soon. Hi, Miss Pershey. Okay, whoops, camera. Okay, so there was a lot of screw-ups that happened in this entire film. Like, for one thing, with all the storm that happened, my grandma wasn't able to drive and drop off some of the props we needed, like the iron weight. She also couldn't find it. So this, hold on. Well, this, hold on. And so this iron weight here, we kind of just made this in 20 minutes.
More like 10.
Yeah, more like, okay, thanks, Bucky. Yeah, like 10 minutes with, well, duct tape, styrofoam from the wagon wheel, and then just tied it up with a piece of shoe, whatever.
Shoestring.
Yeah, shoestring. And also, our beautiful wanted sign here. My printer was running out of ink, which didn't help us at all. And so then we tried to stick it in tea. We stuck it in orange tea, and it turned out like this. Yeah. So that was fun. And also, the beautiful wagon wheel that you see here took forever to make. And in the background, yay. High five for a very low budget. Alright. Also for the thimble, we technically made that in like 5 minutes. Originally, we turned it around and put duct tape on the back, and then I just covered it in little marker dots. But favorite prop, by the way, would be the awesome gun that literally sparks, makes smoke, and a giant bang. Doo-doo-doo. Oh, and a lantern had bugs in it. Anyway, thank you, Miss Pershey, and I hope you like it. Blooper reel.
Duke, don't go away. I love you. Come here. Come here, Duke. Oh. Bless you.
Love you. A head injury. You didn't do.
I'm sorry. I mean, I kind of figured that was a given. So you know that I'm going to zoom in there. But, yeah. Anyways.
Injury from the weight from earlier. Hit back and you forgot to zoom. I'm sorry. Into deep so. When she had escaped to Philadelphia, she decided to go into the background.
I mean,
Okay.
what else am I supposed to do? I'm bored back here.
Okay, start. Just stick on. Okay. I get to wear the hat, y'all.
Dang.
Love you. Alright. By 1857, she had saved her entire family. Darn it. Sorry. Wagon wheel. Wagon wheel. No, keep going. Yeah. Ow, I think I hurt my butt.
Yes.
When the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 was passed, she helped people get to Canada. Most of them were brought to St. Catharines or Renato. Anyone else? Alright, thank you, and come again.
You pronounced Ontario wrong.
Okay, let's do it again.
Ontario.
Ontario. Ontario. Ontario. St. Catharines, Ontario. Okay. 50 was passed. She helped people get to Canada. Most of them were brought to St. Catharines or Renato. Anyone else?
You pronounced Ontario wrong!
Ontario?
Ontario!
Ontario! It sounds like Ontario!
Ontario!
Ontario! Ontario.
Ontario.
Okay. Most of them were brought to St. Catharines
Ontario. Say it with me. Ontario.
St. Catharines or Ontario sounds better though.
Ontario.
They should change the name of their state or their
Ontario.
country.
Is that a
Call
country
that
or
a
a state?
What the heck?
I'm pretty sure it's a city.
I
I don't know. I'm not good at.
My brain died today.
Oh, it's okay. Mine too.
I got home and went, I'm done. Okay, so try that again. This has been a Kristin Wange production.